Okay, so how does a country literally build an entire industry from scratch? It's one of the biggest challenges out there in economic development. I mean, some nations can lean on their natural resources. Others have massive labor forces. But then you've got places like Singapore. They play a different game. They use these incredibly strategic policies to attract the exact kind of investment they need to shape their future. So let's dive into one of their most powerful tools, the Pioneer Enterprise Incentive.
Here's what we're going to cover in this explainer. We'll start with the big picture, then we'll define what a pioneer enterprise actually is. From there, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it all works, like the production day puzzle and the rules for other business lines. And then we'll zoom back out to see why this policy is just so critical to Singapore's success story.
All right, let's set the stage. Pretty much every government on the planet wants a strong, diverse economy. But, actually getting there, that's not so easy, especially when you're trying to compete on a global scale. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you convince some huge global company to make a massive, long-term bet on your country, especially in an industry that barely even exists there yet? You got to make them an offer they just can't refuse.
And that brings us right to Singapore's answer. It's this special status they grant to certain companies, and believe me, it's designed to be that exact irresistible offer.
So here's the key. A pioneer enterprise is basically a company that gets a huge tax break. In fact, the profits from their approved pioneer work are completely tax-free for up to 15 years. This whole incentive is a giant signal to the rest of the world that says, hey, come and build the future right here, and we will absolutely make it worth your while.
Now, this isn't some free-for-all. The criteria are super strict. For one, the industry can't be something that's already big in Singapore. The whole idea is to build something new. It also has to have real, solid potential for growth, and the entire process is handled by the Economic Development Board, or the EDB. You can think of them as the gatekeepers, making sure only the most strategic and promising projects get that green light.
Okay, so the big prize is a tax holiday. But a really critical detail is when that holiday actually starts. And the answer is wrapped up in this very important concept.
And that concept is production day. Now, this isn't just the day they cut the ribbon on the factory. No, it's the official starting line for the tax exemption, and it's determined super carefully by the EDB based on the company's own plans. Everything that happens before this date is called the pre-production period.
So this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when things go even better than you planned? Like, what if a company starts making sales and turning a profit before their official production day? Does all that early money get taxed?
Well, the answer, kind of surprisingly, boils down to just one number: $500,000. This is the magic threshold that decides how all of that early pre-production profit is handled. And this lays it out perfectly. If the total adjusted profit a company makes during its whole pre-production phase is 500 grand or less, the government just says, don't worry about it. It's totally disregarded for tax. It's like a bonus. But if that profit creeps over that $500,000 mark, then only the amount over it gets taxed. Let's make this crystal clear with the example. In the first case, a company pulls in a net profit of $400,000 before its production day. Since that's under the threshold, the taxable amount is zero. Simple. Now look at case 2. A more successful company makes $900,000. So here you just subtract that $500,000 threshold and you're left with 400 grand that's subject to tax. It's a simple rule, but a really powerful one.
All right, time for a quick quiz to see if you're following. A company brings in $1 million in revenue and has $300,000 in expenses all before its production day. So, based on what we just learned, what's the profit figure we need to compare against that $500,000 threshold?
And the answer is $700,000. Yep, you just take the revenue, subtract the expenses, and since 700 grand is over the threshold, that company would get taxed on the extra $200,000. See? Simple as that.
But what if a pioneer company is doing more than just its one pioneer thing? Well, the government has rules for that too, just to make sure the whole incentive stays focused on its mission. This is what's known as a separate trade. It could be literally anything: a consulting division, a totally different product line, whatever. It's any part of the business that isn't the specific pioneer project that got the tax break in the first place. Now, this is where the policy gets really clever. It's called the set-off rule. If that separate, non-pioneer business actually loses money, the company has to subtract that loss from its tax-free pioneer profits.
This is absolutely crucial. It makes sure that the tax break can't be used as some kind of slush fund to support other, less successful parts of the business. The tax break is for pioneering and for pioneering only.
So we've been deep in the technical details, but let's zoom all the way back out. Why go through all this trouble? What's the grand strategy here?
Well, it's about so much more than just one company or one factory. The Pioneer Incentive is a tool for nation building. It's designed to pull in massive, long-term investments that build entirely new pillars for the country's economy. And that, in turn, creates high-skilled jobs, develops local talent, and ultimately lets Singapore proactively shape its own economic destiny instead of just reacting to whatever the world throws at it.
And this quote, which comes right from the policy itself, just gets straight to the heart of the matter. The focus is squarely on filling a strategic gap, on building what the country needs for its future, not just what's profitable right now. It is a masterclass in economic foresight.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. You know, decades ago, the pioneers were probably in manufacturing or electronics. Today, maybe it's AI or biotech or sustainable energy. As the world keeps changing at this incredible pace, what industries will nations need to build next to make sure they're secure? What does it even mean to be a pioneer tomorrow?